Welcome to Rekindled Faith with Melanie Bearda. Whether you've been wrestling with questions, facing doubt, or simply just uninspired, let's dive into what it means to be authentic followers of Christ. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to this week's episode of Rekindled Faith. This week we have with us Autumn Higashi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat about life and all the things that come with that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you. And before we dive in, though, I'd love for you to introduce a little bit more about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, totally. My name's Autumn Higashi, and I kind of first dove into activism and all that kind of stuff when I was 16. I grew up in a Christian home, but I live in a very small town, so I was kind of in a little bubble. But I was like homeschooled and I did speech and debate. And so I was like definitely in a kind of small bubble of like what life looked like. And I remember the first time that my eyes were kind of opened to kind of the dangers of our culture and really the dark parts of our culture, and especially the way they target young people, was when I was 16. I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw an article by Teen Vogue titled "What to Give Friend Post Abortion." And I knew what abortion was. It was something that we talked about growing up, but it was the first time I'd ever heard it talked about in such a positive light. And I was just so shocked and appalled to read this article that was targeted towards girls my age and to have such a false idea of what abortion really looks like. And so I wrote a response video. It was like a 10-minute script that I sat down and I wrote, and I found a studio to film it in. And then I reached out to an organization called Students for Life of America and asked if they wanted to, share the video on their platform. And I was thinking back to kind of what my expectation was with that, and it really was nothing. I just remember thinking, if any other girls have seen this article and have just been like, oh, maybe I have the wrong idea on abortion, I wanted there to be an affirming voice that abortion is wrong and it should not be talked about in this light. So if even one girl saw this video and was like, thank goodness there's other girls my age that think like me, that was enough. But the video blew up, ended up with millions of views. And then I partnered with Students for Life of America. I started working for them as their spokesperson. I started traveling the world, speaking, doing interviews. And it was such an amazing, like, wild time of my life. I was 17 years old, hopping on airplanes, and I was in DC all the time. And it was just so not what I was expecting. I came from a very small town, and all of a sudden I was kind of thrown into this spotlight. But the Lord just continued to open doors, and I just continued to walk through them. And I worked for Students for Life for 7 years before deciding to step down and kind of just do things independently as I navigate being a wife and a mom. So my life is a bit slower now, but I still have that same passion and love for educating people on abortion. So
How encouraging for you to have been so young and to step into a position that is so charged. Like there's just so many different opinions and so many people fighting over who's right, who's wrong. And to be like 16 and just know this is something that I am passionate about and I am going to speak to. That's incredible.
yeah, and what I will say is it's so not my personality, like it was just, I think the first time in my life I felt such a strong calling from the Lord. That was not something I was like kind of searching for. Sometimes that there's something you love and you're looking for an opportunity to do that. This was not the situation. I'm like a fairly shy person. I don't love being in the spotlight. And this was just such a 180 of kind of like what I was comfortable with and what my life looked like. And so I think sometimes like when the Lord calls you to something, it would have been very easy for me to be like, this is not who I am. This is not something that I know how to do. Um, but it was just so humbling and amazing to see the Lord continue to open doors and then just prepare me for the moments that He had called me to. But I always tell people that because I think sometimes we hold ourselves back from either ministry or activism because it's not us or it's not really our personality or it's outside our comfort zone. And I think sometimes you just have to do the thing and trust that the Lord will prepare you for it. Because if we just wait until we feel 100% ready, I don't think I would have ever done any of the things that I did. And even like halfway through my journey, there was times where I was put in circumstances that were so scary and just so like I don't think I'm the right person for this. But just trusting the Lord and just kind of going in it with the idea of if he's put this opportunity in front of me, I'm going to trust that it's for a reason. I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's good. Faithful and obedient. That's good.
yeah, even if you really just don't feel like you want to, like it can be pretty, pretty overwhelming, but the Lord is gracious and
That's good. That's good. I'm just curious, like, did you along that path ever encounter people, women specifically, that had come up to you and shared their abortion stories?
yeah, absolutely. That's something you see pretty often. Something that always blew me away is I would, be at a conference sharing and speaking, and something that I always like to discuss when I have a platform to talk about abortion is the reality that abortion hurts women. This is not just I think our culture phrases it as, empowerment of women and to be anti-abortion, you are anti-woman. But the reality is that women are deeply hurt by abortion. They're often the victims of a very, very terrible, you know, circumstance. And Planned Parenthood and other abortion facilities are targeting women. They have tactics to essentially coerce them into choosing abortion. And I would have people come up to me and say, I've never told anyone this in my entire life, but I had an abortion when I was 17, and there's not been a day that I haven't thought about it. And it's not been a day that that has not weighed on my heart. And I think that we have a lot of women in this culture that are hurting, and more than anything, they need the life saving healing of repentance and forgiveness from our Lord. Like we would see a huge revival if we were able to get to these women and just connect them with these resources so that they are not carrying that guilt for the rest of their lives, because that is a dark, scary, and just sad, sad reality that a lot of post-abortive women are struggling, and our culture does not really address that. And the pro-abortion side absolutely doesn't address it. You have to just continue on and pretend that that was the best decision you've ever made. So I definitely just feel such a burden for these women who are hurting and feel like they don't have a place to bring that.
Yeah, that's something that I've thought about a lot because if I think back to being a young person, like one of my biggest fears was becoming pregnant outside of being married,
Mhm.
being a young person and being pregnant and having to like be faced with that choice. I was adopted and my biological mom was told by the men in her life to get an abortion, and she chose to give me life and give me up for adoption. And so for me, there's a very like vulnerable part of my soul that just recognizes how easily I should have not been here if she would have listened to those people and those voices. So anyways, but I also just think there does seem to be a dialogue in the pro-choice movement that just kind of um dismisses all of the feelings that may come up, and for things that might come up later, because I can imagine being a young person, finding out you're pregnant, choosing to have an abortion, and like just being rushed through that decision by the people in your life, and getting to the other side of it, and then everybody's gone because you made the decision, you've completed it, it's over, and who's walking with you afterwards, you know what I mean? Like everyone's just gone, and then you're holding this dark secret that is like, what do you do with that? You shove it down. You can't really bring it up because you're expected to not have emotion around it. And if you bring it up to like either the pro-life side, maybe you're going to feel like they're going to judge you for having an abortion. Or if you bring it on the pro-choice side, they're going to be like, stop talking about it, it's over. You know what I mean? Like that balance does not balance.
Yeah. Well, and that decision is so often made in a state of panic, which is a lot of the work of the pro-life movement is trying to get to women in that in-between stage. So whether it's sidewalk counseling, a lot of pregnancy resource centers have emergency text lines or call. If you are able to connect with a woman in that very, very critical and short window where she is abortion minded but has not made the decision yet or has not gone through the procedure, and I've talked to people who are like, praise the Lord that somebody got to me because I was freaking out. And when you start Googling it, like that's the number one option. Like, it's fine. If you have an abortion, all these things you're scared of are going to go away. And so it's seen as just like the easy, quick undo, but you're not undoing anything. You can't undo creating a human life. You just end that human life and then realize there's a lot of pain that comes after that, that they don't talk about, you know what I mean? Because abortion is wrapped in this pretty little bow of, like, a reverse button, but that's not the reality at all, and a lot of women I've talked to feel very lied to in the way that they were counseled by people who were suggesting having an abortion, which is just heartbreaking. And you think, why would the pro-abortion side want women to feel uneducated and kind of pressured into one decision, you know? Um, and I think that they're just left in the dust of the abortion industry because you're right, you go get an abortion and there's nothing after that. There's no resources, there's no care. If you want that, you have to go to a pro-life pregnancy center. Almost every pregnancy center I've ever, worked with or you talk to has post-abortive counseling, which is such an important aspect of this ministry.
Absolutely. It's a big decision. And I think too, like I wonder how many women make, like you said, like in the heat of the moment, they make a quick decision and then it's kind of like a numbing sense where it's just everything's happening so fast and then all of a sudden it hits you somewhere down the road that, oh my, like I did that. Like
Mhm.
there's no going back, there's no turning back. So I often think about that too. Like my heart grieves for the women that have felt pushed into that decision and then have regret later.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a like, I know within the church, so many churches struggle to know how to address this because when you're counseling young women, of course you wanna focus on purity and saving yourself for marriage and so you put so much emphasis on that aspect that you have this kind of in between group that have not followed that, right? They're having sex outside of marriage, but then they find themselves pregnant and they are so terrified of the reaction to not walking in the way that they were supposed to be walking that I know oftentimes it's young girls who have grown up in churches find themselves pregnant and they are more scared of coming forth and telling people that they're pregnant than getting an abortion. And so as churches and communities and Christians, it's so important for us. Like I always tell young girls, like 1000% I'm going to tell you it is best for your soul and your body to save yourself for marriage. But if you are having sex or have sex and find yourself pregnant, the church is going to be the safest place to go. Another Christian woman is going to be the safest place to go because these young girls, unfortunately, are left to go to the abortion industry. Planned Parenthood is in their schools, they're on their social media. When you Google, "What do I do? I'm pregnant and 16 and I don't want to tell my parents," it's resources that are created by the abortion industry. And so we're letting our young girls be left to the abortion industry to give them advice and guide them. And so we need to be very proactive about figuring a way to balance these two things, like wanting to protect them, but also making them know that if they find themselves pregnant, it's not the end of the world. And there are options and resources and people who will walk alongside you. So,
Absolutely. I love it. There's a pregnancy center close to me that also has volunteers that will sign up and they will like help you with your baby after like post pregnancy and everything. So they'll go and fold laundry or cook
yeah.
you a meal or just hold the baby so you can have a shower. So I love that the Christian community, like I think from my own experience, I don't have a lot, so I may be wrong, but I think it's mostly the Christian community that come alongside in these pregnancy center capacities and offer like post care when it comes to caring for your baby, helping you like get counseling. If you're wanting to have an abortion, they'll talk to you about what that looks like and the aftermath of what that looks like. So you're not alone in it. You have someone to walk with you.
What I have noticed and experienced is like, and this kind of just relates to just like motherhood more of children are spoken of so poorly in our culture that no wonder people don't want to have kids. Like when I talk to these pro-choice people, it'd be like these 22-year-old college students who are like, I never want to have kids. Having a kid would violate X, Y, and Z. And I just want to tell them, like, I can't tell you it's easy because it has been the most humbling and challenging thing I have ever done. And yet, I would recommend it to every single person I meet. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And so it's so hard to like balance the honesty of how challenging something is, but you honestly, I don't think I could put it into words how beautiful and wonderful motherhood is to somebody who's never experienced it. And I want to tell these people, like, of course you are scared. Of course you feel like you don't want to have kids, but I think it's because you don't know what you truly have not experienced it. You don't know what it is. And so it always is so disheartening to me when I see the way children are spoken about in our culture and the way motherhood is spoken about in our culture, because it is such a skewed idea and version of truly what it feels like to be a mom. And I think that if we were more proactive about sharing just truly how beautiful it is, I wonder if people would feel less scared to have kids. Because the people I talk to on college campuses, like, they truly equate having children to your life has basically ended and you are dead. Like, it's truly what it feels like talking to them. Um, and I always wonder, like, why is that? Why is that? How have we gotten to that point, you know?
I kind of wonder if it's social media.
Yeah. I mean, I
Y-
even see, like, TikToks and reels of moms trying to be relatable, and they're just, like, trashing their husbands and their kids on the internet, and I feel so bad, and I'm like, I understand those you have those moments where you're like, "This is truly so difficult, and I just want somebody to feel bad for me, and I want, like, sympathy in this moment because I want people to know, like, the hard work I'm doing." Like, I just wanna be recognized. And I think sometimes on social media, the sharing the reality of motherhood and being candid often is just your flesh coming out and you complaining and just I don't even know the word for it, but just, like, airing out your dirty laundry and looking for sympathy and pity instead of, showing a true reflection of what motherhood looks like. I've even seen, like, I remember a couple years ago, there was this TikTok that went viral of this mom feeding her kid lunch, and it was, like, the alphabet nuggets, and it was, like, F you, like, she wrote out FUCKU and fed it to her kid of, like, "This is how I feel about you today," and I'm just like, "Oh," like, what a sad place to be, and, like, you just think, like, "How is this an appropriate thing to put on the internet?" And all the comments are, like, praising her, like, "Oh my gosh, I totally get that," and it's just so disheartening to see how quickly that is glamorized and supported in our culture. And it's not gonna make you a better mother. That's the thing. Is this, like, posture and that attitude is gonna make motherhood more difficult. That's the thing, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I know I've been very, even in daily life, being very careful with how I talk about motherhood with other young women. Yes, like you said, like it is hard, it is challenging. It is definitely humbling. I've been so very humbled. I had so many like resentments towards my parents and how they parented and stuff,
I
and now I'm like, "Mom, just wanted to call you to let you know I'm sorry."
I
Like,
know.
so humbling
Yeah.
having the responsibility of raising up two little humans. And so yeah, like I've just been trying to be more intentional with how I talk about motherhood. And honestly, I think that in a way, like the way that our culture is pushing in the directions that it's going has made me recognize why it's important in how I talk about motherhood or I talk about marriage and how I honor my husband and even honoring my parents. The way that we talk about people matters.
I think this is I have struggled so much because obviously, like, my whole job was social media, and I spent years and years building a platform on social media, and I just felt like becoming a wife and becoming a mom, like, I've actually struggled with, like, continuing to post and continuing to grow a platform because in one way, it's like you just have less time. I don't have the same hours, and trying to film a reel while all my kids are running around, and it's just, like, not the same experience. But the other part of it is, like, I've just like, in one way, you can look at it as a very helpful tool. You know, if you wanna share truth, if you wanna share a gospel, if you wanna, like, share your experience, learn from others, it's a great tool to do that. But I've also seen on the other end, it can be so, like, draining, life sucking, and discouraging because, like I said, if you are in a posture to be like, "I am the victim of motherhood today," and you go on the internet and you see all these women that feel the same way, you're just gonna spiral and continue to fall into that cycle. And you see it normalized of women talking poorly about their husbands and them talking poorly about their children. It's gonna get you in a bad mental space. And so we start going to the internet for all of our resources instead of the Bible. You know, like parenting advice. We're now going to influencers that we like and who have beautiful children and cute homes and a great Instagram thread. And I just think that I have even seen in my own heart, it's very easy to just be like, okay, that's where I'm gonna go for my information. That's where I'm gonna go for my resources. And I find myself like not feeling better and not feeling like I'm becoming a better mom. And so I've just been so convicted of like living a quiet life and really trying to be a productive member in my small community. And I just think oftentimes it's easy to try to create the life you want to live for your Instagram versus like really creating the life you want to live for your kids and your family and your husband. And I think it's hard to do both. I at least find it hard to do both. I get too tied into either my life, I forget to post, or I get too sucked into my, posting that I feel like I'm trying to make content just for the sake of making content instead of it like being perfect reflection. If somebody could follow me around and film me, then maybe that would be like a good in between. But yeah, I've just found it hard to balance both of like, where's my energy going? Where's my time going? And what is the point of the energy I'm pouring in? Like, what is the fruit that I'm seeing in what I'm spending my time doing?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I don't have a platform like you have. I started building this like Rekindled Faith and everything when my kids were fairly young. And
Mhm.
so, and I even tried to do TikTok and I kind of blew up on TikTok and then I just deleted it because
I
I got
know. I
I got
can't wait.
babies climbing all over me like nap time and then I'm recording myself for like an hour but I've only got a 2-minute clip
Yeah, my
and then
camera
it's like
roll will just be like
yeah.
dozens of videos. I'm just like, this is so exhausting.
Yeah, like what is the point of this?
Yeah,
So I
totally.
like you, like I am more focused on where I am in the real world.
Yeah.
And then
And
if
it's
I
so
feel
hard 'cause, like
like posting, I'll do it. But
totally, yeah, and one of the things that I love to do is just be in person speaking at events and with people, like,
mhm,
getting to meet real people and, train them or learn from them, and it's hard because in order to do that, you kinda need a social media platform for people to know about you, like, a lot of the events that I am booked is because they've seen me on social media, so I'm like it's such a
yeah,
catch-22 for me. I'm like, I feel so conflicted on where I'm at. Plus, Instagram is just really hard and takes a lot more work than you think, so I
yeah,
think I've just gotten lazy with it.
yeah. Well, I've seen some of your videos where you're now doing pottery.
Yes, I know, that's been my new hobby. I haven't done it in a
Yeah,
couple weeks, we were traveling, so I, like, need to get my hands back into it, but, yeah, it was just, like, a random class I took one time, and I fell in love with it and just bit the bullet, bought all the stuff, which it's a much more expensive hobby than I than I
yeah,
wish it was. I don't know if I would recommend it to people, but yeah, it's just fun to make something with your hands and, like, I think my deep down dream is to just, like, live off grid and live in a community and watch each other's kids and grow food and have barbecues and like,
I love it.
that's my real dream. I don't think I am a very good gardener, and I don't really like animals, so I'd have to live in a community with people who have that skill so that we can all share, you know? I'll make the pottery, I'll watch the kids, and then I'll let somebody else grow.
I'd be happy to like I bake sourdough bread.
See, that's
I
what I need. I need somebody like
right?
that in my commune, yeah.
And I love pottery, so I'll bring the bread, you give me the pottery, we're good
Yeah,
to go.
exactly. Yeah, that's my dream,
I
is
love
just
it.
to have, like, dozens of kids running in the middle of the field, all the moms just make food and hang out.
Yeah, that's like the old school way.
The life, I think that's the life,
I think
yeah.
so. I think it is. And it makes me think of the book of Ecclesiastes. There's nothing new under the sun. It's like
Mhm,
everything's the same. And so, the Lord has given us all that we need, but I feel like we live in a hustle culture where we get so far
mhm,
pushed.
yeah,
And I think even in the topic of motherhood too, I find for myself if I have too many things going on in my everyday life, I'm not as good of a mom as I could be because I'm more high strung and stressed out trying to keep all the things going. And so for me too, like I've had to step back from a number of different things that I was involved in, like, but it's hard to let go because we also grew up with this idea that you need to like accomplish something and
I
become
know,
somebody.
yeah,
And so to let go of those ideas and just be present in your daily life with your kids, with your family, it's a big transition. And that's something that I totally wanted to talk to you about today because I mean, you did have a big platform. I mean, you still do, but you were working really hard, you were doing all the things, and then boom, into motherhood. And so, if you could share a little bit more about what that transition was like and what challenges you had, but also what the Lord has been teaching you in that process.
Yeah, so like I said, I was working for Students for Life and there was a lot of traveling. And then I was also ramping up a lot of speaking tours. And so it was a season where it was like even more traveling. And that is the grindiest kind of traveling that exists, is like trying to hit multiple campuses within a couple of weeks. And of course, the campuses we get invited to are never close to an airport. And my husband was working full time. So he would like work his whole work week. He would clock out. We would go to the airport. We'd be traveling all weekend. It was just like the speed in which we were moving was nuts. And so I was definitely feeling burnt out, like 7 years of that level of moving and traveling. I was already starting to feel a little bit like I'm really tired. And I miss all the things that are my community, like I miss all the birthday parties. I miss all of the church potlucks because I'm always gone. Um, and then we ended up kind of entering a very different season, but I was still working. We felt this calling to enter into fostering, but it was for a specific boy. So it was a very like unconventional. We were not planning on adopting. We were not even really planning on doing foster care. We thought if we did, it would be years down the road, like we are veteran parents and decide to take that on. But the Lord put an opportunity in our lap where we met this little boy who was in foster care and needed a permanent placement. And so we connected with his foster mom that he had been placed with since birth, and he was 18 months old. And we kind of just like stepped in as a support to this woman. She was a single mom, wasn't able to adopt him, but the state was moving slowly. And so we pretty much co-parented this kid with her for like 6, 7 months. And we just felt like such a calling to this little boy. And so we decided to get our license to hopefully be considered to be his permanent placement. And so we were in that process and it was just so, so difficult. They lived like 40 minutes away. We were driving back and forth multiple times, managing both of us working. It was just like a gnarly season of our lives. Um, but of course we were like holding it lightly, with foster care, you just don't know like where the direction things are going to go. But we were pretty sure we were going to get placed with this boy. And then we also just still felt a conviction to grow our family, whatever that looked like. So then I ended up getting pregnant. So I was newly pregnant and we were in the middle of kind of a process of hopefully getting placed with this little boy. And we ended up going forward to the state, telling them we'd like to be considered, but there was another family that they had already been looking into, but they weren't local. This boy had never really met them. So we just thought, this is so simple. We live very close to him. He's been in our home for, dozens and dozens of hours. He's done overnights with us. He knows our family. Like we're a shoo-in. And so we did this very lengthy interview process. And in January of 2024, we got a call saying that they appreciate everything we've done for this child, that they chose the other family to adopt this little boy. And at that time, I just felt such a strong conviction to step down from my full-time job, and I just couldn't explain it. Like, I remember, like, calling my boss just in tears, like, "I have to quit, and this is just what I feel like I need to do." But it was so hard because I had worked for so many years to get to this point, and I had put so many hours, I'd like my blood, sweat, and tears into this very difficult ministry that just felt like such my calling. And it was even harder because, we thought we were going to get this boy. I decided to quit my job. Then we lost him, but I still had that like conviction to step down from my job. So I quit my job and then all of a sudden I was pregnant. We didn't have this little boy. I wasn't working and it just felt like such a weird, like, this is not where I thought that this season of my life was going to go. But then 2 months later, almost on the dot, we got a call from a social worker we never thought we'd hear from again, saying that the other family changed their mind and asked us if we'd be willing to take this little boy still. And it was just such a moment where you just like, we had to surrender to the Lord of like, you knew this was the plan all along. You had all these pieces in place and you were asking us to be faithful and trust you. And it made no sense at the time. But now we've come and seen the perspective that you had all along. And this was your plan for our life. And God knew that Autumn needed so much grace and time going from 0 to 2 kids in the span of 5 months. Like, taking in a 2-year-old boy while being 5 months pregnant was like so much harder than I wish it was or thought that it would have been. Like, I felt pretty seasoned in taking care of kids. I was like a nanny for years. I have all these nieces and nephews. I'm like, I've got this. But I was so thankful to be home and just have a season of slowness to ease into motherhood. And so I still get opportunities to travel and speak, but it's very much on our timeline, and I often get to bring my family and travel. There was an event that flew out my whole family that got to come. And so it's just such a blessing from the Lord to still get a piece of that I love to do, the activism and sharing. Um, but then most days I'm just home with my 2 kids. And it's been, just everything that I've wanted, but it's such a difficult season. And, I think it's just like such a blessing to have the time to be able to focus on it solely without feeling like I have to navigate all these things and be gone away from my kids. So yeah, it feels. I think I struggled though with feeling like I was moving backwards and letting go of something I had worked for, and just to be reminded that I didn't lose anything. The Lord just called me into a different ministry, and to take raising kids as seriously as being involved in a ministry. I think is something that I need to remind myself constantly of like, you didn't lose your life. You're just called into a very different season right now. And it's just important. It just looks different. And the people that, I'm teaching are much smaller than the people that I used to travel and teach.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The way I see it is that God has entrusted us with these kids, and it's our time right now to invest in them so that later on in life they'll be like fully functioning human beings that can continue to walk in the ways that we have taught them to walk in. So,
Yeah, totally. Well, and I remember, like, even in opportunities where other, big things had happened, but it felt like I wouldn't be able to balance both. Like, what people have told me is, like, when everyone says your child's childhood goes by so quick, like, they're not kidding, and you're gonna exist after they grow up. And there's gonna be times and opportunities for you to do these things that you feel called to, or, whether it's, like, pursuing hobbies or like, I need to remind myself, like, this is a small season, and if I can give everything I have to my kids when they're this little, like, what a blessing that is, and I'm gonna have time to go back and be my own person again, like, there'll be a season for that, and not even when they're grown up and 18, like, if my kids were teenagers, I'd feel different about being gone more, but I think it's easy to feel like once you become a mom, your life is just now, like, you're just a mom and that's it, and that can feel a little bit disappointing, honestly, to feel like I had a lot of hopes and dreams that I didn't accomplish, and I feel like I have to do it first. But I remind myself, like, I'll have time after. I'll probably be glad to have something to dive back into when my kids are grown up and I'm bored and at home again. So,
yeah, at some point they're going to want to hang out with their friends and not us, right?
yeah.
I always think about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So,
also think though, like the Lord will use this time and what he is teaching you in this season of motherhood. It's not for nothing. It's going to benefit obviously your family, but also wherever the Lord takes you in the future, it's going to benefit. Because I even think about how you are passionate about raising awareness about abortion and spreading pro-life information for people so that women can find hope and healing in Jesus. And that melts into motherhood, of course, because babies. And now, so like you're walking out in a new season of becoming a mom and learning what that looks like and learning to lean on the Lord in that season. And so that's going to like come full circle later on and be able to be brought forth on, if you're speaking on stages or doing interviews or whatever it be.
yeah. And I feel like my perspective kind of shifted. I joined the pro-life movement when I was really young, 16, and I just felt like it's my calling to like change something, like in whatever scale, like be a world changer. And I feel like becoming a mom, my perspective almost shifted of like I actually don't even want that for myself anymore. I want that for my kids. Like I want to send kids out into the world to go be world changers. And I think like sometimes we like don't fully grasp the gravity of like raising a human being and like shaping them and like teaching them what's important and what to fight for and what to care about, and like what an honor and what a huge responsibility and role I have to take these children that like are going to go out into the world and do something. What are they going to do? And if I could be an influence on what they do and the life that they have, like what a gift that is. And so I felt like, yeah, just the pressure, even the desire to go change the world, it just shifted. Like it's now in a different way. It's not me. It's like these little arrows that I hope to send out one day. And I think that helps me in the day to day with being a mother, of just like reminding myself truly how big this role is, because it's so easy to get caught up in your every day of the, "No, you don't need another snack," and "I'm so tired," and "Can you just, like, go read a book so I can have a minute?" And, like, the park days and just all these expectations you feel like you have as a mom, I think it's really easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget, like, these are holy moments that you have with your kids, and you're not gonna have this much influence, and they're not gonna care about your opinion this much, like, my son, you can just see the ways that he tries to reflect me and, the things he knows that I care about, like, he's trying to bond with me on these moments, and what a gift to have, like, his full attention, and how can I utilize that to be a reflection of Christ to him and to influence him in that way, like, I think yeah, and that's one of the things with, social media, like, not just for myself, but for my kids, like, it can just be so distracting of just keeping people busy, and not thinking about the fact that every single one of these moments is holy and important, and to take that seriously, I always have to, like, really remind myself of that, and I think it makes me just feel more, fulfilled in motherhood, to feel like this work really is all that I could ask for, and it's all the ministry I could ask for.
Yeah, I think of the importance of the connection with your kids and like being present and willing to have those moments of connection. Like you said, like your son's looking to bond with you. And like we've kind of talked about, I feel like we live in a hustle culture where we're just go, 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 go all the time. And I've noticed in my own parenting journey, as much as I love the idea of being intentional with my kids, sometimes I just forget if I didn't sleep well the night before or if I'm not feeling good, it's like, please just go
Yeah,
and do something. Like
yeah.
I can't today. Mommy is off. So, but and then I feel like guilty because I'm like, oh, I didn't, I haven't played with them. And, I find too, like if we're packing to go somewhere and I'm spending so much time packing all the things that we need to go wherever we're going, and then they're like, Mom, you didn't spend any time with us today. And I'm like, I was packing so we could
I
go on a
know.
trip. Like,
My son is such a people person towards, and I'm more of, like, an acts of service kinda gal, like, not really physical touch, like, to me, I'm just, like, gift giving and you like, acts of service, so, like, if I really love you, I will see something that reminds me of you, I buy it for you, like, that's just, like, how I'm, like, I love you, I know you, like, I know so it's just funny having a kid that just wants to, like, literally sit with our shoulders touching and just, like, talk and just, like, it's just so funny of, like, even in those ways, like, having different love languages than your kids or, the people that you're with can really be stretching where you're just like, "No, no, no, just let me love you how I love you," and then just feel completely loved. It's so funny, and, even that, I'm just like, "Okay, how" it's so motherhood really just continues to teach me new things and stretch me in in ways.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
I totally get that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a growing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Well,
like we were talking about earlier about people that, oh, that's not for me. I don't want to be a mom. I don't want to be a mom. Like everybody has different reasons, and I'm not going to pretend that I know everybody's reasons, but again, like the importance of speaking life into this season, this part of our life.
yeah, like we were saying, like, the difficulty of motherhood, like, it's so often softened by community, and it's such a blessing when you have friends that love your kids or you have a place for your kids to go, and I think that's one of the areas in which social media, I think, can be really damaging because I hear all these moms, whether they're, like, trying to be influencers or just love, like, finding a community on the internet. I think that's great. It's great to have friends in other places, but if that's the only place you're putting effort into having a community, you're gonna find motherhood much more difficult and very lonely because your mom friends on Instagram who comment on all your posts and, like, support you in that way aren't going to be able to watch your kids when you're, like, needing a break or you just feel lonely and you wanna talk to another mom while your kids run. Like, the times that I have spent with other moms where our kids, like, get along and they're just running feral. I'm like, I love children. I love being a mom. This is so beautiful." Like, they're just getting their childhoods and they're just, like, running free and we're just, like, drinking coffee and spending time together, like, such a gift, and I think that it's already really hard to find a community as a mom, and this, like, idea of, like, having a village is so important, but I think we're just losing that and losing that, and I've talked to so many people who it's either a reason why they don't want to have kids or it's a reason why they really struggle to love motherhood is they just feel isolated and alone and they don't have a support system. And so they just don't have a break. They feel drained and exhausted and they aren't able to like get to that point where you feel like renewed and ready to take on the day. You're just like constantly waking up in a deficit. And that, makes me so sad for mothers is like, of course, that's a different experience. Or if you're working full time, you don't have time to pour into a community. Like, that can be just so difficult. And I think that's one of the areas in which like motherhood becomes really beautiful. And if we're able to kind of come together and lean on each other and help each other, it makes it feel so much easier.
It's so true. I joined a mom and baby hiking group when I first had my kids.
Yeah.
And I still like there's women from that group that are my best friends today. And we like our kids have grown up together and it's just been beautiful.
Yeah. I love that so much.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Like having the village, but I also have recognized I've talked to a lot of young moms that don't have parents, like grandparents that are helpful
Yeah.
or that like want to take the kids or want to come over and help.
Or
And so
even
I
like
kind of wonder like,
like
yeah, or that like far away.
Mhm.
And I mean, on that too, like there's the balance of does the mom want the help or not? Because sometimes you like everyone's so different. You'll go to one person's house and they don't want you to dust. Like that's an insult.
Yeah.
How dare you look at my dust? And then you go to another person's house and they're like, you can't even help me with my dishes. You know what I mean? Like it's just so different. Everyone's so different.
Yeah, I always have to remind myself, like, I think there's seasons in which I have the capacity to be a village, and there's seasons that I need a village. And to remind myself, if I'm in a season where I have the capacity, like, go do it. Like, I'm kind of shy. I don't like to like impose on people. So sometimes I find it hard to have community because I it's easy for me to wait for people to come to me and then I'm like all in, like I'll do anything for you, like super flexible, but it's hard for me to put myself out there. And so I have found it sometimes hard, like, it's difficult to have a village. Like, there's a lot of work, and I think it's easy to be on social media or just to see people that have all these friends and to feel a lot of resentment and bitterness of like, nobody likes me, nobody cares about me. But what you don't see is like the awkward coffee hangouts you had to get through and the like times your kid like broke something in their house and you just want to like crawl over the ground and never come back. But you have to just like really continue to put yourself out there. And I always ask like how can I pour into other moms that are in my community? Like whether it's at my church, I know someone's having a baby, like sign up for that meal train. Like if they're going through a hard season, like, drop a meal off at their door, offer to come pick up their kids. Like I think really doing that, you'll see then it's reciprocated. But I know a lot of women feel a lot of bitterness and they are waiting for people to come be their friend and they're waiting for people to come be their village. It doesn't happen. And then it's
Man, yeah.
easy to just rest in like resentment of like people don't like me. Nobody cares about me. This person has all these friends. It's like, yeah, you didn't see that person was at every single baby shower. That person was like driving their kids to appointments when they're busy. It takes a lot of work to be in a village, like we want the villagers to come to us, but then it's easy for us to be like, that's a lot of work to
Exactly.
to make it the other way. And so I think that's an area in which, like, not working and being at home, I'm able to do that. And so if there's a mom who's working, like, to recognize that she and I have different hours in the day and, like, how in this season when I have more flexibility, be a village to that person who is in a season where they don't have the same capacity to reciprocate back to me. It doesn't have to be even all the time, because yeah, I'm somebody where it's easy to like give and give and give, and then you get to a point where like they don't give back. I'm done. I'm waiting for them to reach out next time, and then it just fizzles and dies. I think you have to like, what's your priority? Do you want to have a friendship that feels equal, or do you want to have a community where like people feel loved by you and you feel loved by them, and that might look different from season to season, but
Yeah, that's so good. I think yeah, it's important. Just as you're sharing, like I'm thinking about because even just 5 or 6 years ago, I would have been more on like nobody likes me, like I have no friends, or like went through seasons like that, and then I started to put myself out there and
Mhm.
started to do the work and like drop bread off at someone's house or like send a text message, hey, what are you up to? And being more proactive in finding those communities, and it's a lot better. But I think like you said, we kind of wait for the villagers to come to us. But even in saying that, how many times people have invited me to things, but I've it just hasn't worked out. So I've had to say no. And then that, like you said, it fizzles out and it goes away. And it's like, well, I guess that's okay. Like you don't have to be friends with everybody. You're going to find your people if you're wanting to find the people, but you got to kind of do a bit of work and be a part of the village too.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I've always and when I don't know how to do that, like, even just texting somebody being like, "Hey, what can I pray for you and your family this week?" Adding it to my list. Like, reach out. Like, even as simple as that, like, being the friend where people know you're thinking about them. Like, if you don't have a physical capacity to be baking bread and dropping off at people's houses, like, I think there's a lot of way we can, like, keep connection with people and other moms. And I think like, people will remember that, like, I've heard so many moms in a postpartum season where they're like, "Nobody showed up," and then there's people like, "I don't want to impose. They just had a baby. Like, I want to give them space." Like, it's
Yeah.
so easy for that miscommunication to just grow so much, like, space in between friendships of just, like, no one putting themselves out there, no one, like, sharing what they need or what they're able to help with. And so yeah, that's something that I'm, like, continually trying to be better at, like, don't be shy. The worst thing they could do is not respond to you. The worst thing that they could do is be a little bit annoyed that you keep texting them, like, but I think the reality is don't. Like, I get in my head, like, I don't wanna bug people. I'm like, I have never felt bugged by somebody reaching out to me and offering help or dropping off a meal. Never in my life. I've never even been inconvenienced by somebody dropping by unannounced, Like,
Yeah.
even that, like, I'm like, "Wow, what a gift. That's so sweet." If I get a text, "I'm at your house." "Oh, sorry, I'm just getting out of the shower." "Great, left something at your door. Hope you have a great day." Like, I've remembered those moments years after they've happened, and, it just feels like such a deep act of love from a friend to just be there.
Yeah, I so agree with that. I've had people do that to me and like unexpectedly just left a jar of granola at my door
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh my goodness. Thank
I
you so much. That is
Yeah.
so kind. I
Yes.
feel loved."
Yeah. And so whenever I can do I had a friend recently that was going through a really rough time, and I was babysitting my niece, so I brought my 2 kids and my niece, we just blueberry picked all day, and then just, like, I just texted her, I was like, "I'm dropping off a bunch of blueberries at your
Yeah,
door, like, don't even feel the need to come out, like, they're there praying for you," it can be as simple as that.
absolutely. It does not have to be hard.
Yeah, totally.
I love it. So, we got like 10 minutes left. I'm just wondering if there's anything on your heart that you feel like sharing with the listeners, and also if there's anything in particular that God has been teaching you in this season.
In this season, I am continually reminded, and it's so simple, it's like something that you could reply to every season, but just, like, leaning on the Lord is the only way we're gonna get through things, and it's the only time we're gonna see fruit, Like, I try to be a better mom by myself, and the week gets worse and worse. I get more and more frustrated with my kids, and I have to think to myself, "Am I starting my day, like, reading the Bible? Am I, like, bringing this to God? Am I bringing, like, the same frustration I'm having with my toddler to the Lord, or am I just complaining about it in my head and to my husband and to my friends and just feeling sorry for myself?" Like, the Lord is with us in these low moments, and I think it's so easy to just try to, like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, try harder, do better, and just the times that I've come to the Lord humbly and been like, "I don't know what to do. I'm struggling so hard, and I need help," like, He is with us in all these moments, and something that I've tried to do, especially, like, having kids, you realize, like, they're watching what you're doing, they're watching your habits, they're watching the way that you're speaking. What we've tried to do recently is, like, out loud thank the Lord for all of those, like, tiny little moments, just like, "Dear Lord, please clear up the weather for my daughter's 2nd birthday," saying that out loud all week, and then my son, we went outside and he said, "Mom, it's a beautiful day for a pool party. Thank you, Jesus," and just, like, bringing him into everyday moments and everyday decisions and everyday thoughts of, like, being prayerful out loud. I just feel so much more at peace than mentally trying to, like, logically figure everything out on my own. And then I also realized, like, I have no choice. I feel like things happen in your life, like going 0 to 2 kids in a very short period of time, adopting, like, our oldest is adopted, and, we were very young when we took him in, like, we were very unprepared, and there were so many moments where we just came to the end of our rope, like, we can't do this and we have nothing else but just to cry out to the Lord and ask for help and ask for him to give us what we need in this season, and you just see like his hand working in everything is so beautiful, like we've thought back to what our prayers were a year and a half ago and the ways that the Lord has answered those. And then we just moved on to new things. Like it's so easy to forget to reflect on the ways that the Lord is truly answering our prayers and blessing us. Like you will be in a season where you're just like, please, Lord, give me a child. Please, Lord, give me a child. And then 3 years later, you're just like looking for a break and you're so frustrated. It's so easy to just feel discontentment in the season you're in because you're not stepping back and looking at like the whole perspective of your life and how is the Lord like moving all these little pieces. It's so easy to just get swept up. And so, like, my biggest advice for people and encouragement is like, whether it's in a journal or, just like writing in a note, like in this season, what am I crying out to the Lord for and thanking him when that season ends or that season is redeemed. Um, it's just, and you might not see the end of that, but just to like praise him out loud does a lot for your posture and your heart. And those are seasons where I've felt much more fulfilled and being reminded by his goodness and the things that he's doing. Um, but yeah, it feels like a constant learning cycle of things changing and the Lord teaching us new things. But I just feel so honored and blessed to have been used by the Lord in the ways that I've been used and to be, like having beautiful children that I love and, just there's just so many ways in which the Lord has blessed me and to be reminded of those. That seems so simple, but all these things I prayed for years to just really like take that seriously and be thankful for what the Lord has blessed us with. So I think it's easy to feel a lot of discontentment in every season you're in, which is all valid, like life can be so hard, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a very deep, like transitional season of my life where we're just like constantly being faced with new things and learning things. So I'll probably have better advice in 20 years when my kids are grown up. I feel like I'm in the thick of it.
Yeah. But journal entries are great.
Mhm.
Like I have a stack of journals from when I was a lot younger, and sometimes I read over those and I'm like, whoa, yeah, yeah, God's been faithful. God's brought
Yeah,
me far, right? So
I
I
know.
think that that's really important.
And even just like reminding yourself, like the Lord is in control. He loves you and he has good things planned for you. Like, seasons of my life, I remember that in between phase when you're like an adult, but you can't really make all your own decisions yet because there's all these people telling you what you should and shouldn't do. And you're like trying to navigate dating, but like you shouldn't date too much, but like you need to find a spouse like pretty soon because you got to like settle down. Like that season of my life just felt like so overwhelming. And I remember just feeling like this is so difficult. I think it's such like a hard season of your life. And I wish somebody had just like reminded you, like, God knows what the plan is. It's not really up to you. Like, you're not actually responsible for all these things. You're going to go through them. You're going to make decisions. You're going to experience things. But at the end of the day, like, the Lord knows the plans for your life. He loves you. He wants good things for you. And if you trust Him and do your best to walk in the way that He is calling you, like, you're gonna be fine, you're gonna be okay. Your timeline might look different from other people. Your life's gonna look a lot different than you think it's going to, but I think it's just so easy to feel so stressed about all these decisions you have to make, all the changes, and the Lord is he knows it all. Like, I remember somebody telling me it's kind of like like if you and your spouse have a show that you're watching together, like if one of you just gets like just can't wait. The spouse is gone or whatever, and you watch the episode by yourself. Like you just can't wait. You watch the episode, you don't tell them. And then you're sitting there with your spouse and they're like so stressed out, like at the plot, and you're just sitting there like, I already know what's gonna happen. Like that's us and God. God's up there just like, you're wasting your energy as we're like freaking out of like, what am I gonna do with my life and all these decisions we have to make? Like we're running around with chickens without their head, and the Lord is just like, you're gonna be just wait like 3 years. Like it's gonna come around. You're gonna be fine. And so, you know, like I know that's such hard advice to take and just like, okay, I'm gonna be fine. But I really like for people who are in a season of waiting or in a season of heartbreak, or, you know, no matter what it is, like one of those difficult low seasons, to just be like, Lord knows the end of this. And to just lean on him and rely on him because he has a plan and it is good.
Amen. I love that. Be present with the Lord. Take
Yeah.
the time to rest in his embrace and spend time reading his word and journaling.
Yeah. And I always tell people, like, that season of your life where you're trying to figure everything out, what you don't realize is you have the most time you ever will in your whole life. Like, spend it really making good habits. Spend it really in God's word. Spend it really building friendships, because if you wait to do all that until you're a mom and a wife, like, you're going to wish, like, I always joke, like, I wish I started pottery when I was like 17 years old, because now I'm trying to navigate it like in between naps and bedtime, but I'm so tired by the my kids go to bed. I'm like, if I had gotten through all these learning curves of a hobby when I had all this free time that I was wasting texting people and like trying to, figure out who I was going to marry, like it would have been time such better spent. But
Totally.
so if you're in that season, just like pray a lot, read your Bible, make good friends, find a hobby, really put a lot of time into things that you enjoy, so that when you're in that season you're waiting for, you'll be happy that you were productive in between.
Yeah, I like that. It's like embracing the season of waiting.
Yeah.
And choosing to be present in it, because I think that cheesy quote, it's not about the journey, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I know, we just get so like on to the next thing. And I think our culture is so built like that. Like, what's the next goal? What's the next accomplishment? That the in between just feels like wasted time, like especially for young adults. Like, it just feels like you're waiting to get married or you're waiting to have kids. But really, like, the Lord is not waiting to use you until you are a wife and a mom. That's not true. The Lord is not
He's
waiting
using
to
you
use
now.
you. Yes, exactly. And so just to be receptive of what the Lord is using you for in that season, I think is really important to be prayerful about, and remind yourself of like, what talents do I have? What skills do I have? What loves do I have? Like desires, things that I like to do, and like how can I use that for the kingdom? How can I use that to glorify God? Even in like, I tell like young people, like, if you have a hobby, like whatever it is, like how can you use everything you do in every day to glorify the Lord? I think I've seen a lot of people get stuck in that in between where they're just like waiting to get to life, waiting until their life starts. But the Lord is going to use you at any stage and any age. So,
Yeah, I've started to tell my kids that you're going to spend a lot of your life waiting for things, so you might as well learn how to wait well now.
exactly. Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. I wish that I had heard that advice. Like, I feel like I just wasted so many hours in my teen years. But then again, like, you know, I was kind of busy actually. But yeah, like when I was 16 and the Lord called me to that, it would have been so easy for me to be like, okay, maybe that's something I'll do. And I graduate high school or graduate college, like I had to put a lot of things on hold. My life shifted a lot. But when that became a priority, it's like you figure it out, the pieces fall into place. Um, and yeah, I was just so many amazing opportunities opened up because of the willingness from 16-year-old me, things that I never would have expected would be my opportunities.
Yeah. God is good.
Yeah. He is. I in every season, that is something that I continue to learn. So,
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Autumn, thank you so much for joining us on Rekindled Faith.
yeah, thanks for having me. It's so good chatting with you. And, I pray that people listening, whether it's they feel related to or encouraged, just to point to the Lord and go to his word in whatever season, whatever trial or joy you're in, to remember that it's all for a reason and the Lord is there with us through it all. So,
Amen. So good. All right, listeners, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Rekindled Faith. I'd ask that you would like, comment, share, subscribe, rate the podcast, all those things, so more people can get in touch with what's going on over here. And I'll see you next week.